And we're on air. Cheesehead Teller. Oh, I've just realised I'm not the host with the most today. Brendan, over to you.
Yes, thank you, caller. Hello, Cheeseheads, and welcome to the Cheeseman Podcast. This is Brendan, your host of the show, joining you from Brazil for this special YouTube pod extravaganza. I don't know. It's a quick one today. We're looking ahead to tomorrow's Premier League game with Leeds at Ellen Road. Joining me to discuss all things El Loco. First up, I'll go with the Harlow Globetrotter. How you doing, HG?
I'm doing really well. It's Friday night, so the weekend has started. Next week, I think is that we all love and Spurs to start the weekend. So I'm doing well.
You're cutting in and out there, but good to hear your voice. Caller, also joining us, he's in charge of the buttons, is the caller. How you doing, mate?
Well, I'm in charge of the buttons, but I feel limited that I can't actually press any today, unfortunately, with you in the captain's chair. It's always a pleasure to join you on the podcast and on YouTube, Mr. Magruti. And, I've got to say, you're looking very disappointingly sober this evening.
Yes, I'm having a dry May. Well, I'm going to try to dry. I was calling it dry and May, like a bit like Brian May from Queen. But yeah, just to have a dry May.
But less hairy.
Less hairy. Why? Because I
Brian
shaved my
May.
beard a bit.
No, the Brian
I
May,
see.
idiot. Oh, God. My jokes just don't land. Well, there you go.
Mine was awful in the first place. But let's get on. We're going to talk about the latest Spurs gossip, the managerial stuff, and the latest from UEFA on their slap on the wrist for the Dirty Dozen. But first up, we have a game to review, and it's Leeds United at Ellen Road. Quick looking at the opponents. They are 11th in the table. Won 14, drawn 5, lost 15. The last time out, they lost 2-0 to Brighton. But they were unbeaten throughout April, where they beat Man City and drew with Liverpool and Man United. Injury-wise, Rafinha and Phillips did train today, so it looks like they'll be back. Phillips, in particular, is a big plus for them coming back if he does make the starting lineup. Top scorer is Patrick Bamford with 14 goals, and April Manager of the Month candidate Marcelo Bielsa lines them up 4-1-4-1 in their defensive phase and just goes all at it when they're attacking. Caller, the stats show that Patrick Bamford is their main threat with top scorer and joint top in assists. But there's more to Leeds than Bamford, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. I think the thing is with Leeds, everyone gets very excited watching them. I mean, I've heard Bielsa linked with the Spurs job this week, and I'm not surprised really as to why in terms of the brand of football they play. And I think Leeds, whatever their defensive flaws are, they're excellent to watch, easy on the eye. And they very much attack as a unit, don't they? Up and down, very much high press up and down the pitch. So I think the truth of the matter is the threat can come all over the way when you're playing Leeds. Bamford has absolutely taken the Premier League by storm this season, and obviously he's banging in the goals. But you know they've got some excellent players as well, haven't they? I mean, I looked a few of them up because the caller always does his research, you know. And Cooper is apparently their highest average rated player, Cooper. And I'm going to say this wrong. HG's going to laugh at this. Biloli. There you go. Biloli. Very good. And I know Rafinha plays for him as well, and I haven't even mentioned him yet. And he's excellent. So, you know, I think the Leeds have got attacking threat from across the pitch.
Yeah. Well, HG, last time out we beat them fairly comfortably 3-0, but that was sort of peak Jose ball. That was low block counter, and it was quite comfortable in the end. Jose's gone. We're playing a different brand of football now under Ryan Mason. So how do you see us? How would you approach this game if you were Ryan Mason? Would you go and attack, or would you sit back a bit to get that space, let them have the ball and catch them on the counter? What would be your strategy against El Loco? Hello?
He's on mute. He's muted himself, it says. Okay. He's left. He's going to come back. The beauty, the wonders of modern technology. Shall I tell you about my gin of the week? Well, as
what is your
gin
of the week?
It's Seppesfield Road Distillery. It's beautiful. and I'm a little bit disappointed, if I'm being honest, in the tonic water. It's bitter orange and elderflower tonic water, but clearly there is nothing bitter about the caller.
Well, looking at the Leeds game, I don't know. It's a good question because we beat them with Jose in charge, and that was one of Jose's best games that you thought when his plan sort of came about and worked. But we've got Mason now. We played on the front foot against Sheffield United. So, HG, if you're back with us, do you think that that's the approach to take? Should we go at attack, or should we be a bit more cautious, bearing in mind that Leeds are probably just a bit better than Sheffield United?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, because I was going to interrupt Caller before when he started talking about the Leeds player Cooper, whose first name he clearly doesn't know. There's that wonderful research.
I'm so going to put him back on mute. Is it Bradley Cooper? Bradley Cooper?
Bradley Cooper. Tommy Cooper.
Tommy Cooper. Just like.
But like, to answer your thing, I know you talked about the first game against Leeds where we beat them 3-0, and you talked about how it being kind of Mourinho's low block. I don't think we played a low block game. I thought we were pretty progressive. I'm pretty certain it was Højbjerg and Winks that midfield, and after that, we barely saw Winks again, despite the fact he was part of that team that did win the game convincingly. But both said the Leeds team should be better on Saturday. It should be a team that's close to the best Leeds team that they can play, that they've got the centre-halves back, as you said, Liam Cooper is his name.
It is Liam Cooper. I was just testing you.
Okay, yeah, Liam Cooper, and then, of course, the innings at the start of the season, the German Robin Koch, and the Spanish, very good, the Spanish guy, Llorente, obviously. So I think they've got most of their players back. I'm not a big fan of Patrick Bamford. I don't care if he's got 14 goals this season. I don't really rate him that much. But Leeds will be a difficult team for sure. So I hope that Spurs, we do try and play on the front foot a bit more and press them as much as they might want to press us. But yeah, we have to be, and that's where I think that we might struggle.
Yeah, just on Bamford, he was on the Peter Crouch podcast last week and sort of talking about Bielsa and how he still uses a translator. Like he's screaming and shouting at them and swearing at them, and the translator's like translating all the swear words, but just filtering it. Like at the beginning, he would use the swear words, but now he's like, right, I've got to filter it. But I can't see Bielsa coming to us. We need, after Ramos. I just think that you do need an English-speaking manager. And it took Bielsa a while to settle at Leeds. It didn't kick off from day one. It took a while for his play to come in to fruition. So I don't know about that. But what do you make of Bamford, Caller?
I've said already. I mean, he's been a revelation really in the Premier League. If Spurs came in for him in the summer, you wouldn't be too disappointed, would you? Was he got about 13 goals, 7 assists, complete all-round player? I think I'm right in saying that, HG. 13 goals, 7 assists. Is that right?
Yeah,
I couldn't tell the rate. I don't rate him. Doesn't matter how many goals he scored. To me, this is a bit of a fluke. Yeah, like he didn't score last season in the Championship. They loaned the Arsenal guy Nketiah, who got a lot of their goals in the first half of the season before Arsenal recalled him. I'm surprised. I mean, yeah, I wasn't expecting Bamford. That is maybe what I was thinking, but I'd like to see him do it second year before we start to think that my initial appraisal was that wrong. Obviously, they play very attacking football. Bamford might be on the end of things, but I mean, he scored a couple of really good goals this season. There's no doubt about it. But Spurs, based on one season, no thanks.
Well, Caller, they're 11th in the table, so they're not going to go down. They're mathematically safe. They're probably not going to make Europe. It's a bit of a stretch for them. So is the hope here that they might sort of just take it a bit easy? They've got really very little to play for. They might be on the beach in Argentina with El Loco making them a mojito.
Do you really think that with that monster raving lunatic Bielsa, like who squats? I've never seen someone do squats at that age so efficiently. Yeah, that he sat there squatting at the side of the pitch for the whole game, yelling at them and snarling at them in Argentinian. Do you really think they're going to be on the beach? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think they're going to come full throttle and they'll play like they're enjoying the game. And I think that's why people enjoy watching Leeds, because their players do genuinely enjoy playing football, attacking football, and for Bielsa. And it sort of does. I know Pochettino, he was Pochettino's mentor, as Poch talks about it a lot. And you can see a lot of the similarities, albeit with a lot less defensive organisation. So no, I can't see them being on the beach. The thing that gives me hope is the way we've played the last couple of games has been on the front foot and attacking. You take the cup final out of the equation, where, let's be honest, Manchester City just pasted PSG, who've got an incredibly expensively assembled side. I don't really think you can judge that game against City in terms of our progress. It does look like we're trying to be more progressive, and we've got to go for it, haven't we? That's the other thing. We have got to go for it. We've got to win every single game. So Spurs should be up for it, should be motivated. I think it could be a cracking game, if I'm honest, especially for a neutral.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, on Bielsa, like he is the Poch is his disciple. Bielsa went to his parents' house when he was a kid and squeezed his legs while he was in bed. Which I don't know. I've got two boys. Yeah, I wouldn't let a manager whose nickname is El Loco to come into my kid's bedroom while he's asleep and squeeze his legs. But it was the 80s. It was a different time. Couple of comments from the chat.
Gary Glitter in his prime.
Sneaky uploader 4. Sportsbet has Bale at 40-1 to open the scoring. I'm sticking a tenner on that. Could that be a betting bot? I don't know. Prove you are not a betting bot.
I don't think it is. Sneaky uploaders followed us before, but I have to say, if Bale's 40-1 to open the scoring, that is worth a tenner, isn't it? Christ, the form he's in. I'd see what the odds are for a hat trick while you're there, please, Sneaky uploader, and we'll put them out.
Also, John Williams asks, is it true that Caller's dad is a fan of HG?
Right. I thought we were going to address questions at the end of this pod, but as you brought this up now, I'll address it here and now. I think he sort of complimented HG on being, when we were catching up this week, on being, well, Rash, stop looking so smug. Don't let it go to your head. He's my dad. He's wrong about most things. He said, well-rounded and intelligent individual, as we all are on this podcast, So, yes, I suppose he's a fan of HG and absolutely the cheese room.
Also, by the sound of his connection today, HD lives on Mars, and so that's probably why your dad.
It's like the Eurovision Song Contest. This is Austria calling.
I am extraordinary. What can I say?
Oh, that's better. That's better. That was a full sentence. HD will come to you now. We'll move on to us now. We're HG. We really turned it on against Sheffield United with the big guns blazing. Do you see much change in the starting 11? Do you think he'll stick with the BASC or the SHAG or whichever acronym you want to go for up front? Do you think we'll see that front four again, HG?
Maybe. You don't change a winning team, right? Like, I don't think Ryan is particularly difficult, and certainly I don't think he's particularly tactical when it comes to these things. But I don't want to see those front four again. But I think Mason may well keep them. Yeah.
Well, who would you go with then?
I just think in midfield we might get outnumbered. So, like, if you're going to have Bales, Kane, and Son as the three, which I think probably we all want to see, we need a bit more mobility. Someone who can run with those Leeds midfielders. And we all know that Dele Alli likes to run. He runs a lot during a game, but it's not sprints. He just moves constantly. And I'd be nervous whether he's defensively aware enough to handle that, because it would be a very important role with Højbjerg and one other behind him. So maybe it might be a chance for someone like Lucas, who's a bit more mobile and certainly more willing to track runners to take that spot. But as you said, I don't really mind so much, because we need to score, and that's got to be the focus of our board. I just think that maybe Dele would be one to possibly miss out, despite the fact that he did okay in his first game back in the last game against Sheffield United.
Gordon, how about you? I mean, when we did the preview for Sheffield United game, you scoffed when I suggested that Dele might get a call up, but now who's the caller? Do you think? Do you agree with HG? Do you think that Delhi might get the chop for someone like Lucas or Lamella?
Possible. I mean, let's face it. Delhi had a good game. Last time out, and his work rate was really good. I don't really see any reason why you drop him. I get what HG's just said, but I wouldn't tinker with the team too much. I believe it pretty much as is, and I think there's got to be a little bit of consistency in there, whereby we make sure that we've got a settled run in these last few games. I don't want to see the centre backs chopped and changed anymore. I don't really want to see. We've got no need to rotate. There's no other competitions. We've just got 4 cup finals, as the old adage goes. Let's play the team that's in form. And what did we win last time out? 4-0. Let's not change a winning formula for me. Apparently, yeah. I've just heard I can see on the chat. The standard Leicester wobble is well and truly on. Newcastle winning 3, Leicester 3-0. 3-0.
Holy shit!
I called it. I call it every year. I mean, to be honest, you don't need to be the caller to realise that every year Leicester are going to wobble. But what is nice is...
maybe it's because their manager's not very good.
It's possible. But maybe, I mean, this is so good for us because, A, we might get Brendan Rodgers if Leicester don't qualify for Europe. HG. Secondly, 2 of my most senior managers at work are Leicester City fans, so I'm going to have a fun morning tomorrow.
See, I'd have Brendan Rodgers just to have a Brendan manage Spurs. For me, ever since I was a kid, I hated my name. It was different. There was like one other Brendan in my school, and I went to an Irish Catholic school, so you'd expect more Brendans. But I'm fine with it now. I called my eldest Brendan as well to give him the torture that I had when I was younger.
I think the other thing is it would drive HG slightly mental for at least a month if we appointed Rodgers. So I'm all in. I'm in on that. I can see the comments coming in now. 3-0 Rodgers to Spurs is so on. Rodgers bottling it. He's perfect for us. So Spursy.
This is not. These are not positives. The fact that he like the fact that we bottle it doesn't mean we want a manager who does that. It's not how it works.
I think that's made it happen.
Thing is with this, I said that Leicester would drop points. And I said that it could come down to, I mean, as we all did, in fairness, come down to that last game in the season. Because, I mean, Newcastle was their easy game, I think, in the run-in. So, assuming they don't make some miraculous comeback now, which I doubt. How long's left? About half an hour or 20 minutes? It could well be a playoff for 5th between us and them. I can't contemplate us getting 4th, but it could be very close to that 5th spot. So all to play for, guys.
Yeah, this is it. I think Leicester have got 3 league games plus the cup final, and their league games are Man United, then Chelsea, then Spurs. Chelsea in the cup final, so they've got to play Chelsea twice in a week. But yeah, Man United, then Chelsea, then Spurs, and obviously Chelsea will need the points. Man United might not need the points, and it will be during those awful 4 days where Man United have to play 3 games because no other team has apparently done that, according to Solskjaer, apart from us. But yeah, so like Leicester, they might get a break in the Man United game, but yeah, to lose 3-0 at home to Newcastle in a game where they probably knew this was the banker, this was the one that they were going to get. It's going to give everyone a fillip. I mean, the Spurs players will be looking at that scoreline thinking it's on. Right, like we've
got to perform tomorrow now, boys. Yeah, got to perform tomorrow.
Yeah. It'd be just so us if they do lose tonight, which is looking like they will, and we don't turn up against Leeds.
No, Brent. If we do, we'll win. What will happen is it'll go down to that last game of the season, and then we'll get thumped by Leicester.
Well, let's just wrap up the preview. HG, coming to you. Defensively, I mean, we've looked relatively solid since Mason took charge. I mean, the competition hasn't been great, other than the City game, but we'll leave that as an anomaly. But Southampton and Sheffield United, like the 4 at the back that he's played in both games. So we've had Aurier, Toby, Dyer, and Reguilon. What have you made of them so far? What did you make of them against Sheffield United? They weren't up against much, but do you see him changing the defence or sticking with the defence?
No, I think they'll stick with those 4. I mean, those 4 are the That's the most used backline we've had all season, even if it's only like 6 or 7 games. That's the 4 I think most of us would want to see. So it does make sense to stick with them. You might think, okay, maybe Sanchez could come in because of the extra pace, but I don't think we're going to do it because we need to worry about making sure we get it right further up the pitch. I think the defensive work has been fine. You're right, we haven't really been tested. Southampton and Sheffield United are the 2 worst teams in the league when it comes to form in 2021. So 2 home games against those boys, like we can't read too much into it. But yeah, like Leeds, they're one of those teams that could create loads of chances and score 0, or create loads of chances and score 6. You just don't know with them. But I like to think that we are strong enough to deal with it. We just need to be brave enough to run with them, because if we don't, they will work harder than us and they will run further than us, and we have to be ready for that challenge.
Yeah, fingers crossed they're knackered after the triple training sessions with Bielsa. Caller, what have you made of Kane since he came back from his injury? Does he look fit to you? Does he look sharp to you? And we won't go on about his future because we've done that and he's staying put. But his form right now, what have you made of it?
I think, well, he's only played a couple of games, hasn't he? Let's be honest, he's had the cup final. And then I thought he was quite unlucky not to get on the score sheet last weekend. So I wouldn't read too much into it. He's had a nice week in between games. A bit of a rest. He should be sharp and ready to go against Leeds, shouldn't he? Let's face facts. I think I said it on last week's pod. I just think having Bale on, or I might have said this in the Patreon chat. If you're not a Patreon already, sign up. The link's in the scrolling ticker, and you get to listen to me, HG, Brendan, and all of the podcasters talk nonsense all day long, and get some insight into our brains, which is a scary place to be. But Kane and Bale in the same side will terrify defences when they see Bale on that kind of form. No matter who we've played or how good or bad you are, you've still got to take the chances. And if you watch the way Bale took those 3 chances, it was just world class. And you know you're going to get that from Kane in anywhere near the danger zone as well. And then Sonny hopefully is playing himself back into form as well with that wonderful curling shot. That should give him a big lift.
It was a beaut.
It was a beaut. So people should now be worried. Teams that play us should now be worried about that front 3 firing. So I back Kane every day of the week. He's got the golden boot to chase. Is he 1 goal ahead still, or is he level? I'm not. It's close.
I think he's ahead. I do think he's ahead
Marginal. So he's got things to play for on a personal level, because that's his only chance of winning a trophy this season. Bom. And honestly, if you think, put yourself in the sort of the brain of one of those Leeds United defenders. You've got Gareth Bale, Heung-min Son, and Kane to worry about, and they're all on form. That is terrifying, and you don't know who to track and watch who's run. And honestly, they could wreak havoc against any team, but especially a team that likes to push up the pitch as much as Leeds do. So I do honestly think we could be in for a really high-scoring game at both ends. I genuinely do. I think it could be a cracker, and it's a shame I'm working. That's the other thing I think. So I'll have to save it and watch it in full later. But it will be a really good match, I think.
Well, let's put your money where your mouth is. I don't even think we're putting money there, but let's get your predictions. Caller, what do you think the score will be against Leeds tomorrow?
Oh gosh, I'm going to go for a high-scoring opening 4-3 victory.
Oof. That's a big prediction. Who's going to open the scoring?
Can I just ask Brent, what did I predict last weekend?
You said 2-1. I said 3-1.
No,
Franco said 4-0.
No, I didn't. I said 4-0.
Yeah, you did. Franco said 4-0.
It's documented. I said 4-0.
No, Franco said 4-0. Anyway,
4-0.
Okay, so you're going for HG. What do you think the score will be tomorrow?
Look, I always say that we will concede and then we don't. So how about we do that again? I will say 3-1 Spurs.
3-1 Spurs. I like that. I think I'll go with that as well. I'll go 3-1. Bale to open the scoring. I might stick that tenner on it. I don't bet, so I'm not going to do that. But Bale to open the scoring. 3-1 to Spurs. And that will bring us within 4 points then of Leicester and 2 off Chelsea.
Yeah, we're
yeah.
4 points behind Leicester. Leicester are apparently losing 4-0 now.
Oh, wow.
Holy shit.
4-0, yeah. It's, yeah. What do you say to this? 4-0 at home in like, probably the last easy-ish game of the season. Crazy.
I'm going to be sending some texts. That's what I'm saying.
Why didn't Newcastle turn up against Arsenal last week? They were dog shit, and Arsenal.
But it doesn't matter.
Strong.
It doesn't matter. Look at Arsenal. Look where they are. They've got nothing to play. We'll get on to them. We'll get to Arsenal. Don't you worry about that. We'll get to Arsenal. Let's finish this off.
All right. Well, yeah. Oh, should we get to some comments then? I was going to do football prizes, but we'll do that at the end.
Do football prizes now. Do football prizes now.
Prizes? Okay, just to let you know, Cheeseheads, that the latest prize on footballprizes.co.uk is a beautiful signed Paul Gascoigne frame. It's from that FA Cup semi-final when he scored against Arsenal, the free kick in 91. Tickets are $4.95 each, and there are just 66 tickets available. With your promo code 10cheese, that's 10cheese, you get a 10% discount. The draw is made on Monday, so good luck. Call up. Let's get into the comments.
Does this mean now we've finished recording the podcast, in effect, I could assume control of this debacle, which means I need to move you into this box, and no, I'm not going to do that. The comments, let's go through a few. So lots and lots and lots about Leicester bottling it, which is wonderful. Nicholas Fenson says, would rather Ivan Toney than Bamford, HG?
Yeah, why not? Yeah. I mean, they probably cost the same, and Ivan Toney is much younger. So, yeah, like obviously Bamford is a bit more proven in the Premier League, but Ivan Toney scored goals wherever he's been.
And Ivan Toney sounds like the guy you kind of like face a boss level Street Fighter, doesn't he?
Yeah, yeah. like anyone.
Where was he
Ivan,
before Brentford?
You don't want to mess with him, right?
Where was he before he went? It was at Brentford, HG.
It was at Peterborough.
Peterborough. Okay, so he's climbed the pyramid.
Yeah, so he scored a lot of goals for Peterborough. Then Brentford spent decent money at that level to bring him in to replace Ollie Watkins. And yeah, I mean I don't know how many he's got, but he might be the top scorer in the Championship. He gets most of Brentford's goals. Brentford are going to be in the playoffs again. So he's probably going to get a move to somewhere. He probably will get a move to the Premier League. Maybe back up to Spurs isn't the best move to him because he'll want to play. But Brentford find the gems. So if you look at that Brentford side and Tony's scoring all the goals, if they don't go up, he will be moving almost certainly.
Mm-hmm. If we do get Europe, though, I mean, we will have plenty of games. Kane can't play every game. So if we do get Europe,
he's played virtually every game this season, in fairness, hasn't he? He's hardly had any time out this time round.
Kane?
Yeah, he hasn't missed many. I know Europa League a few, but...
I mean, but that's just it, isn't
it?
At some point, you need to figure out what you want Kane to do. Do you want to save him for the Premier League, or do you want to say, right, look, Kane, you're going to play the best Premier League games. You're going to be in the big games, but there might be a few where we won't play you to start with. You'll be on the bench. I'm sure Kane won't like to hear that, but he has to think about his career, and Spurs have to think about making sure that the squad is used correctly. I mean, we beat Sheffield United, and Kane didn't really do anything in that game, so. It's tough because we all know how good Kane is, and we all none of us will want to drop points having had Kane on the bench for 65, 70 minutes. But yeah, this is what the big teams do. I mean, Man United, sometimes it's Rashford, sometimes it's Cavani, sometimes it's Greenwood, sometimes it's Martial. You don't really know who they're going to start with.
I guess that's the point, though, isn't it? You need someone of that ilk in the squad to do that. I wouldn't trust the Brazilian legend we've currently got in the squad to knock a team over in the way those players can.
But I mean, this is it. We have options. We have the options that others do. We just don't have that central striker.
Mm.
If Vinicius was playing with Son and Bale, obviously it wouldn't be as big as having Kane there, but it's still a decent front three. So it's tough. At some point we have to figure out what we want to be. If we just want to have a squad with 11 or 12 really good players that play every week, well, we've done that and we came second. We need to do a bit more than that. I think we need to do what the bigger teams do. You look at the Man City squad, they have 20 world-class players. We won't get to that level, but there's no reason to say that we can't start acting like that type of club, because right now Spurs and even the fans, they do seem to be like, we want our team to be as good as it used to be. Well, that was great, and we love that team, but if that team wasn't good enough to do what we wanted it to do, so we have to do something different or something different, something better, and
Yeah.
hope for something better. And that's not easy to do, and you need to find a manager that's willing to do that. And some won't be willing, but still, we have to rest Kane at times. He can't play every league game from the start. He shouldn't have to.
Well, speaking of knees, Nick Dornan says, "Wish my knees were half as good as Bielsa's, and I'm about 30 years younger." I hear you, Nick. Mine are too. Bren, how are your knees? And isn't Bielsa like an amazing, like, how old is he? About 55, something like that.
Oh, much older than that.
Is he 60?
Older,
Is he 60? Is he probably in his 70s actually? If he was like kissing Poch's knees in bed,
I think he's in his early 60s.
Hamstrings, early 60s.
I'd say early 60s. Yeah.
How are
quite
your
as old
knees,
as
Bren?
that.
Your knees good?
Oh, dodgy as fuck, mate. They're awful. But yeah, I could never crack. I'd need a bucket. I'd crouch.
There goes
and
our
look like
PG-13 rating right there, Brendan.
have we ever had a PG-13 rating?
Yeah, there are some actually. Yeah, there are some.
But one point that's just come up in the chat as well was about the midfield. I'm trying to find out who put the comment, but the midfield is key against Leeds, and so he seems to love Lo Celso, so we'll go with Lo Celso, Højbjerg, and like we said, whoever is ahead of them needs to put in the yards to keep pace, and so the midfield doesn't get overrun, because you know what they're going to be like.
Okay, right. Thanks for that. I'm going to get back to the comments. Phil Ambrose says, if you're going to give Dele a game, then you need to give him a run of matches. That's pretty much what I said, isn't it? HG, you were sort of talking about... Would you actually drop him, though, or were you just sort of being speculative?
It's tough, because I'd be nervous. I'd want to make sure that we are good enough to get the ball, and with Højbjerg and Lo Celso, I don't know if we would be strong enough to win the ball in midfield. The good thing about Leeds is that they do always look to attack. Right? I mean, it's not as if they're going to keep possession and be patient with it. They're going to want to try and score at every opportunity. And if it is very much a counter-attacking game, almost like basketball, end-to-end stuff, then you'd want Dele around. It's a tough call. Like, I think if Mason decides to keep Dele, none of us can complain because it's a winning team. But I do think that perhaps someone just who's a better runner. Like, I understand what he's saying with Dele needs runs the games to get back to where we want him to be. But yeah, I just don't know if Leeds is one of them. Like, the two home games, sure, why not? But Leeds is almost the toughest game when it comes to style, because Leicester play relatively similar to us if we're on the front foot. So do Wolves, so do Villa. But that Leicester team, the Leeds team, they really can. They make lives difficult for you. I mean, that's their role, that's their job, and I don't want us to be caught cold because we're not prepared for something that they do every week.
Yep, fair. Dave Bolton, hello Dave, we miss you. Come on soon. Hope that parenthood is everything you wish for and more. On the beach is the end of season equivalent of a rainy night in Stoke. Something Seb Shaw would know all about. All teams have something to play for. It's called the money for placing. So yeah, I suppose they've got a bit of cash to play for, haven't they, Bren?
Yeah, I suppose so. But I mean, how much of that filters through to the players? That would go to the club. That would probably spend it on new players. So I don't know what an incentive it is. Maybe they get their win bonuses, sure. But I don't know. I just think that with very little to play for, it may work in our favour that we do have something to play for, especially bearing in mind that Leicester are currently 4-1 down.
Absolutely. HG, nothing to play for Leeds? On the beach?
It's a weird one, because I don't think they even know if Bielsa's coming back next year. I don't think he has a contract signed or anything. So the players might be playing for their futures, It's a weird one with Leeds. Like, I think that they all care about winning, right? I mean, obviously they're professional enough. I don't think they're going to be worried about whether they finish 11th or 10th or 13th. But I think there is a pride in that they want to play the big teams, which Spurs still are, and they want to beat them. They want to prove to themselves that they can do well against the bigger teams. They've played well against Liverpool a couple of times this season, but I don't know if they've beaten anyone. I mean, yeah, okay, they beat Man City, didn't they?
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a big game for Leeds. I don't think they're going to have one eye on Barbados just yet, or the Falkland Islands, or wherever it is that they can go now, thanks to the UK government. But yeah, it's
Ascension Island. Yeah.
exactly
But
essentially
Bielsa would
they're
call them Las Malvinas, according to Bielsa. The
Oof.
Argentines call it Las
I
Malvinas.
mean, that's
So
his
I know,
need to revoked, isn't it?
I know it's election day, no politics, and everyone voted Tory, but it's Las Malvinas in Argentina.
I think in
Um,
yeah, I think he's probably on sticky wicket wherever you are in the UK and whoever your political association is calling it that. To be honest, but yeah.
One quick question for HG. Are there any of the Leeds players that you fancy that you'd want us to pick up to try and sign? I mean, Phillips looks like a decent player, but we've got Skippy coming back that can fill that position maybe. Obviously, we have Højbjerg. Are there any players there that you'd want us to go for?
None's come to the top of my head really. That's the thing. Like I feel like they're almost like Wolves, but their players are just a few years older. When Wolves team when they came through in the Premier League, we looked at Ruben Neves and we looked at some of the other players they had and thought, okay, yeah, they might do something at Spurs. Leeds seem to be quite a workman-like journeyman team and a very good one. But I don't think anyone looks at them and thinks, you're good enough to play for one of the bigger teams. Calvin Phillips is probably the only one that comes to mind because he plays for England. But if you look at the rest of the centre halves, Llorente seems all right, although he's been injured for most of the season. I've always been a small fan, let's say, of Luke Ayling, but he's 30 now, and with his Arsenal past, I don't see that happening.
Rafinha?
So yeah, exactly. Maybe Rafinha. I mean, this is it. He's the one who came in right at the end of the transfer window and seems to have done really well for Leeds.
He's looked good.
I think he came out and said that he had like 20 minutes to decide whether he should go or not. And he chose to go, and he's done well in the Premier League. But I just think that if they do it again for another season, then fair enough. But right now, I don't think there's a Leeds player where I'm thinking, yeah, I'd love to see them at Spurs.
Okay. Nick Dorden says, I always like the look of the Caller Man Cave. Reckon we need a crib-style cave tour on the channel at some point. That's possible, but I'm not actually in the Man Cave. This is the study. We moved up here because the broadband Wi-Fi reception wasn't so good, and the lighting was a little bit dark in the Man Cave. So,
Question, do you live in the Cluedo house?
what do you mean?
So it was the vicar with the candlestick in the study.
In the Man Cave. This is my study, man. This is my study. I got my desk. I got my computers.
The man cave is just a garage. I mean, it's just a garage.
It is just a garage.
But it's a nice man cave. There's no doubt about it.
It's a cool garage. Don't you worry about that. Yeah, it is just a garage. That's right.
And now there's space because the Peloton treadmill has gone back home.
No, I'm not recalling mine. In fact, I went for a little run on it last night just to be belligerent, really. Yeah, a couple of little bolts don't scare me. That's what I'm saying about that.
Any more
Peloton are
comments?
watching this broadcast and taking it off me. What else have we got?
There's one point. Greg Anderson says, "What about West Ham? We talk about Chelsea and we talk about Liverpool and Leicester. West Ham are there, and their running is relatively simple compared to some. I think they've got Southampton, they've got Everton. They don't have a big team left.
Well, I mean, right
West
back
Ham
at
keep
you,
on-
HG. Right back at you, because you're the West Ham hatred expert.
Yeah.
Do you see them doing it?
Well, yeah, why not? I mean, they're deservedly where they are. They're a much better team when Antonio is fit, and Antonio's fit right now. So if he can stay fit for the last 3 games, they are more than capable of getting 3 or 4 victories, whatever it is they would need. They've done really well this season. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Like I dislike West Ham mostly because of their fans and their owners. To be honest, the players
yeah.
I have little issue with, and David Moyes has done really well with them. So like if West Ham pip us, I'll be annoyed, but again, I'll be blaming myself because this is, well, not myself, but I'll be blaming Spurs just because like this is the worst season we've had football wise that I can remember for a long time. And this is West Ham's probably best season ever. And that if they do finish ahead of us, it's going to be a handful of points. The 2 points we dropped to West Ham right at the start of the season could really come back to haunt us. And I don't think any of us really thought they would haunt us because of West Ham. Like I think that we all thought that we'd regret dropping those 2 points, but we wouldn't regret it because West Ham would finish above us. And it is possible. It's definitely possible. I don't want to see it happen. I'd like to think that they'll find a way to bottle it, but they went to Burnley and they beat them pretty convincingly. So, yeah, I don't know. You have to be a little bit impressed with them, even if you don't like what they're doing.
Leicester not only worried about wins and losses now, but also their goal difference. They're on 19 now, goal difference. Chelsea are on 22 and we're on 22. It's just so open, isn't it? I mean, Liverpool have got a game in hand on us, so that's what we forget. So we're kind of in a false position. We're technically 7th.
But that game in hand is Man United away.
True.
So it's it is going to be every single weekend. Like we've done it for the last 2 months now.
So tight.
Like if we beat Leeds tomorrow, we can rest easy for another week until the next game. I mean, it's going to be a while. But yeah, I don't know. Like it's just nice to care about football in May because I spent 25 years of my life not using May to decide what players we were going to sign, and because of the manager situation, we haven't even really thought about the players we could go for in the summer.
Well, absolutely.
It's nice to have football to care about.
And switching gears, Bren, if we talk about protests and lobbies, do you think if Spurs get in the top 4, the protesters have got much to be unhappy about ENIC and Levy out about after all this, this season?
I think there's more to the protest than our league position. So I respect the decision. I think that it's more to let the owners know that there is a section of the fan base that's not happy, rather than them genuinely believing that ENIC will sell or go, or Daniel Levy will go. I think they just know that there's people that are annoyed and they want to make their voices heard, and why not? So if we finish 4th, that's great. I still think you saw how many Man United fans were protesting the Glazers. They're going to finish 2nd. So I don't think league position is the issue at the moment.
It's slightly different. This the bit that I struggle with, and you can both come at me on this if you like, is we're in a slightly different situation to Manchester United in terms of our owners. So I think their owners were absolutely all over the European Super League since the inception of it. I think Levy's guilty of fearing that we have been missing out, so sort of went, oh yeah, just happy to be here. I think Franco touched on that on the pod, which was a really good pod. If you haven't looked it up, do so. I think that we've invested. I mean, firstly, the owners have not taken anything out of Spurs, and Spurs have tried to fund that stadium themselves. Predominantly 500 million quid approximately from Spurs revenue has gone into that stadium. They have never taken a dividend or a special dividend. Yes, Levy is a very highly paid director, but in terms of the Glazers, they've taken hundreds of millions of pounds out of Manchester United in special dividends. ENIC, for all their flaws, have never done that. So they're not exactly like leeches sucking the club dry, which, if you want to look at it in the terms of Manchester United, you could make a justifiable case for that. So, to me, I don't think we're in the same league with ENIC than we are with United, if that makes sense. So, I suppose what I'm getting to is, what are we protesting? HG, where do you want to start to unravel all my nonsense?
I think it's very interesting to kind of hide behind the whole. Well, it's like saying, yeah, look, I know, officer, I only committed 1 murder, whereas these guys, they've committed 15. That kind of misses the point here. The point is that the club and the custodians of the club have made some bad decisions, and people are upset about it. Now, it's definitely fueled the people who have been Levy out for the last 3, 4, 5, 10 years. I mean, some of them have been Levy out for a very long time.
By the way,
but I think
the Leicester match is 4-2 now with a minute to play, and they've just had a goal ruled out to 4-3. So sounds like a cracker. Anyway, carry on.
I think the crucial thing with this whole Super League business is that the relatively level-headed Spurs fans who have seen that perhaps Levy isn't perfect but has done a lot of good for the club, a lot of them have turned around and said, "This is too much now." Like we've been told from day one for a very long time that Levy's only concerned about money, and although we've agreed with that, there has always been this understanding that what was good for the club was good for them mostly, and that if it was a win-win situation, we'd be okay. That to me is the big change now, that you've got a lot of people that used to be pretty on the fence, or used to be give Levy the benefit of the doubt, are
Yeah.
now starting to question that. So yes, you've got the very vocal minority who have been Levy out for a very long time and will use this to try and curry favor with everyone else. But there are a lot of people who have decided, this is not really what I want to support. I don't want to put my money into the club anymore when they make decisions like that. Decisions that I think are against the good of the game in general. I mean, I've said this a lot on podcasts that, look, I support Spurs, they're my team, but I love the game of football. I would be watching Leicester lose to Newcastle right now if I wasn't doing this. I watch as much football as I can. I love the game, and what the Super League proposed, it was terrible. It's not what I want football to be. And the fact that my team, even if they only did it for their own benefit, rather than being like the major players in this, it just doesn't sit well with me. So I get
Do
it.
you think the ESL's the straw that's broken the camel's back with these with the protests? Then, do you think that's what's actually finally tipped people off? If anyone actually turns up on the 14th, 15th, 16th, or 17th,
Look,
do you think that's what the final straw was?
You've talked about Manchester United. I think this is the perfect example. I mean, the Glazers have been doing what they've been doing for a very long time. Some people have cared and they decided to start FC United because of it. But a lot of people haven't. And like Man United are second in the league. They've had a relatively good season. They're in the Europa League final. I mean, that is a good season by most clubs' reckoning. And yet the fans have decided because of this that now is the time to really make a stand. So
But
yeah, I do.
United, but I suppose my point was that United are a completely different level of bullshit towards the supporters than
I would
Spurs.
agree
This
with
doesn't
that, but we're
excuse
talking
our
about this.
bullshit.
I'm not saying it
HG
excuses it. I'm not saying
said it himself. Like one murder, he's committed 15, we committed one. Doesn't excuse our murder. But other people's bullshit doesn't excuse our own bullshit. And the move was just so cack-handed, and they essentially lied to the supporters trust when they went to them and spoke about the European Super League. They said, "Oh, it's just speculation. We can't talk about hypotheticals."
But hang
Where
on.
in corridors, in smoke-filled rooms,
There's
they
a very real.
were doing it.
But you know as well as I do, there's a very real possibility they couldn't talk to supporters trust about it because of an NDA.
Again, that just goes to show that it was they didn't care about the fans.
I don't think they do. I don't think they do care massively about the fans. Daniel Levy does care about the success of Tottenham Hotspur. It is a problem. I completely understand that. Where do you?
The thing is, like for many years, Daniel Levy has paid lip service to the fans, right? Like he's come out and said things that people I think have understood in one way when they were meant in a different way. The famous one being that the stadium won't affect any kind of transfer funds, and everyone was like, "Great, we're going to spend money." When actually, what that meant was, "No, we're going to break even with transfers like we have done for the last 10 years."
We planned not to spend anything, and guess what? We're not spending anything.
Exactly. And for many fans, they were hoodwinked by that. And I think with Levy, you have to listen to what he says and try to find the actual meaning, because it's not what he's saying. Like he doesn't say the truth. He says something that is true, but is happy to make you think that it means something else. It's tough to trust them, right? Because we want Spurs to be the best they can be, and you can't deny that Spurs are better now than they were when Levy took over. You can't deny that. However, what is the purpose for being better? Is it so that we can win trophies? Is it so that we can be a football club, or is it so that we can be a business? And I think for a lot of fans, if for the fans that don't want to pay 60 quid to go and watch the Villa game midweek, or for those that are spending a lot of money to support their team, and the team isn't the reason that the money exists for, there's a problem. And I think that is the issue, what it comes down to. Like, I live abroad, so the chance for me to pay 60 quid for a ticket, I don't have it, but I wouldn't do it. if I was in England. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't pay that money to go and watch Villa on a Wednesday night at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock or whatever it is.
Bit disrespectful to Villa. They were top of the league for a large swathe
No,
of the
but
season.
it's not about Villa. Like, to me, like, the one time I went to see Spurs in the new stadium, it was midweek and it was a cup replay, because I can't justify spending that money, even if it's Spurs, even if it's the one thing that I've loved for all of my life. Really, it won't be worth that to me. That's a lot of money for me, and I don't feel like I'm particularly poor, but I just feel that's too much for people to pay, and it's unnecessary. It doesn't need to be that way. To hide behind the whole market forces, or the idea of like, well, like we need to get in as much money as we can.
I
Look,
don't think it was that.
I
think
would
it's
like us to
naivety.
get as much money.
I think
I
it's
would like
total
us to get as
naivety.
much.
Total naivety.
Sorry?
I think it's total naivety. I don't think Spurs are being greedy. I think they're being stupid and naive and out of touch. And those are the things that they're good.
Can they be all of them?
Absolutely, they can, yeah. I mean, look, 60 quid isn't a lot for a Premier League fixture when you look at our calendar of fixtures across the season.
Maybe these days, it's not, but that's still a lot of money.
It's an average ticket price.
That is a lot of money.
I suppose my point is it's an average ticket price. When they pitch that,
average
they probably,
for who?
For the season, for a season ticket holder.
Oh yeah, no. For Spurs, it might be average, but again, we don't like. The club doesn't necessarily need that. Like, weirdly enough, I completely think that if the ticket prices were a maximum of 50, people would still spend all the money in the bars and all the food options that the stadium has. I suspect that when people are now going to have to pay 60 for the ticket, they might think, you know what? I'm going to go to the kebab shop that I used to go to. I'm going to go to the pie and mash shop across the road.
They won't.
No, you won't. You won't. But a lot of people will.
Maybe,
right? I mean, because they think, you know what, I'm going for the team, but why should I put more of my money into the team when the owners, who have a lot more money and are able to do much more, decide to do nothing extra? Why should I put extra in? Like, I go to Spurs to support my team.
Yeah, and I get that argument. I just think once you're at the stadium, it's a captive
give
market,
a free pie.
And most people want to go for 2-3 beers and a pasty or whatever at half time. I don't see that changing just because there's a point of principle. I really don't.
But that's because you don't have principles.
That's unfair. That is very unfair. I have got lots of principles, but I don't think people will want to have the inconvenience, to be honest. I think they like the convenience of being at Spurs, and it's cheaper at the stadium than it is going over the road in terms of beer, certainly. My view is that, if you let me get my point across, my initial view was that 60 quid isn't a lot of money for a Spurs ticket. It's about average. So actually, 60 quid, it's a bit more than I'd want to spend, but whatever. Then I see that other teams Burnley are doing it free. I don't know, I can't remember the other teams off the top of my head, but they're like 20, 30 quid a ticket, and which is in effect half price what it would normally be at Spurs. It's probably less of a drop for those teams because Spurs have the highest ticket prices in the league. But I kind of think to myself, well, why can't we do it if they're doing it? It seems like, and it's a 10,000. It's peanuts in terms of the revenue it's going to generate, and it could generate so much goodwill. But that's why I say it's naivety. I don't think they've done it out of thinking, oh, we're going to clean up here, we're going to make loads of money, because they're not. They've done it thinking, they probably priced it when, what's the average ticket price for the season of 60 quid? I'll just put it at 60 quid then. But it's the naivety. You've got to understand. Well, no, they've got to understand how bad they look right now and respond to it with some sort of PR. I mean, what pisses me off about this whole European Super League is Levy hasn't even apologised. So you've got Liverpool's owner doing some really insincere grovelling video. You've now got the Glazers after the protest, who are sort of starting talking about fans owning a share, like that will ever happen.
Chelsea as well. Chelsea
doing something about the board.
Fans on the board.
Spurs have just been silent, and that's not good enough, is it? That is not good enough at all. They need to. If you're watching Daniel Levy, do something, just something. Give me a free pint at the game.
A pie. Because then you'll drink
Brendan
more.
Loves pies.
Get a pie. They're great. The tikka pie at the ground was amazing. Give one of those with this. They cost what, $5, and then that will make people go there. And they're like, "Oh, I'm thirsty now. I just had a really hot tikka pie. I'm going to have a few pints." And then
I'm really not sure about that. The right thing for them to do is come out and slash the price of the tickets and say,
yeah,
"Hands
of
up, we made
course.
a mistake. Let's give you a bit back." But they won't
How
do
many
that.
more U-turns?
Do you know what I think would be interesting? Let's say, like, I mean, this is a pipe dream, but like we've got what the second biggest stadium in the league now after Old Trafford. I don't think there's one bigger than that
I
apart from
think it
Old
is
Trafford,
second biggest. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So let's say all tickets that aren't hospitality you can choose what you can get away with, right? But all tickets for home fans are 40 quid across the board, right? Every stadium basically charges the same for a ticket. But because we've got the fancy stadium where we've got ways where we can make extra money and we've got more seats, we would still end up having more money from the stadium than our rivals, but we wouldn't be fleecing our own fans to do it, right? And that's the interesting part, right? Like there has to be a middle ground somewhere. When, like, we know that with Spurs, the percentage of our revenue will come. A lot of it will now come from the stadium. But will it really come from the ticket prices? That's the question. You know, like if I'm paying 40 quid to go and watch Spurs, which I think was probably a fair price, 40, 50 quid, 60 to 80 quid I think is too much. Even for games against Arsenal and Chelsea where we can be oversubscribed massively, I don't think it needs to happen like that. It can just be no. The league understands that the fans play a massive role in creating the atmosphere that the rest of the world love. Right, they do, and it doesn't mean that rich people don't sing as much as poor people, because they obviously that's nonsense. They sing just as much. But the idea being is that you do create something. You create this idea of people going to games as a group, as with friends and family and all the rest of it, which right now is almost impossible to do, and that's sad.
Well,
And
rich
I
people. Let me
don't
tell you,
like
rich.
that.
The sad thing is, the really sad thing is that rich people aren't the ones that bear the brunt of it so much. I mean, because poor people still go. I'd say poor people. That sounds really dismissive.
I
It's
know.
not what I
I don't mean
mean.
it like that.
You know,
Yeah.
lower incomes or whatever. Your average working Joe who's seen ticket prices go over the last 10 years, but they'll still go. They'll put it on a credit card. They'll pay monthly on the scheme with interest-free credit. They will do all these things to go and watch their beloved Spurs. And you know what? Some of them have got 2, 3 season tickets for their kids and whatever else. And the shame of it is that person just gets squeezed and squeezed and squeezed and squeezed, but they'll still pay it. That's the shame of it. That's my
And
view on
that's what
ticket prices.
And that's why I think that it's wrong from the custodians of our club to squeeze the supporters of our club when it doesn't need to happen to the extent that it does.
Well, the problem
I
is
think
our custodians look at it on a supply and demand basis.
I know, and that in itself is a problem. It is a problem. Like I can hide behind the whole, well, market says I can do this, so I'm going to do it, but it's basically exploitation to an effect. Like
To an extent.
yeah, like you're saying, like, just because I can get away with it, then I'm going to try, and that I don't think that's right. That might be my political leanings coming through, but I don't think it needs to happen. Like we can have a situation where everyone wins, where the club still makes a lot of money, and the players will still make the fortune that they deserve for being as good as they are, and the average person who loves Spurs, son of a computer programmer like I am, that can go to games. It's really sad that people have just decided that the way things are the way that things will always be, because it doesn't need to be that way.
A controversial comment. I'm going to throw this to Brendan because he's been far too quiet for far too long.
Oh, because I can get a word in edgeways.
Kevin Murray says it's a good experience for £60. Brendan, is it a good experience for £60? Is it £60 worth of value?
I paid £60. I paid exactly that for my tickets to the Palace game a couple of years ago. I got it on the exchange. Yes, and it was a one-off for me because I was in England at the time, so I was all right to pay it because I'm not going to be paying that every week or every other week. So for me, it was okay as a one-off, and it was a good experience. I must admit, I hadn't been to the new ground. I enjoyed it. It was incredible to see it.
Where did you sit?
And the opposite to the single tier. I can't remember. It was
the north.
North, then yes, it was not the wall, the other end.
Yeah, north stand. Which tier?
Lower tier, I think. It wasn't
Were
quite
you in
high.
the middle bit?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was the middle bit.
That's where my season ticket is. Did you enjoy?
It did,
Good, because
yeah.
I've still not
Is it?
sat in the flipping seat.
Oh, because I went with this flag or the printout of this flag, and everyone was like, "What is that? What is that?" I was like, "Oh, it's
I
the
don't
Brazil
remember it.
Spurs
Yeah, yeah.
banner," and
Why
people
have you
taking
brought
pictures
red
of it.
into a Spurs ground? Yeah, yeah.
I know people are asking about it. It's the Bahia flag, and there's a question actually from Mick Mikitao asking if I watch the Brazilian league. I do. I support Bahia, obviously, because I'm in Bahia, who are 1-0 down in the Copa do Nordeste. They've got the second leg coming up this weekend, so I'll be cheering on Bahia.
Brendan,
I do the league.
where in Brazil is that? Just out of an idiot's guide to Brazil. I know Brasilia roughly. I know Rio, and I know when Colombia, and that's it.
It's the northeast. It's like the most sticky out bit at the top. It's almost like in terms of the closest bit to Europe because it sticks out. It's the northeast part of Brazil. Bahia. It's a big state. It's the size of France and the UK combined.
There you go.
In terms of landmass.
Impressive.
Should we look to wrap up, guys?
No. We're doing good here. Because there's another person who wants your attention. Cheers from a Brazilian living in Portugal. Hope to get to know the stadium if prices allow me to do so.
To the Benguilherme.
I mean,
it's possible. It is possible to do it. As I said, like you just have to pick the game wisely. Like in my case, it's funny. Like I did. Yeah, like when I went, it was a cheap midweek FA Cup replay game, but obviously I had the flight thrown in, so it was doable. But yeah, I mean, if it's a once in a lifetime thing, then yeah, maybe you do pay it, right? Because like I paid a fair chunk of money to go and watch Spurs in the new camp because I figured it was a once in a lifetime thing. I had to go and do it. So yeah, like I guess I didn't feel that way about the new stadium. I wanted to see Spurs, but the stadium to me was less of an attraction, as much as I did the tour the following day after the game. So yeah, like, it is rough, but I just think that.
And next time you're here, we'll get you up the Skywalk. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
I would love to do that. I would love to do the Skywalk.
I think that is it. The whole cheese. I mean, we're waiting for you, Brendan, to let us know your availability for when you're going to be in the country. But don't feel any pressure whatsoever. But we can't book anything: hotels, a meal, a recording studio, the Skywalk, until you make your mind up what you're doing. So don't feel any pressure. But let us know as soon as you can. Thanks very much.
I'll be over next month.
Next month.
Yeah.
Wow.
Is that in blood?
It's literally because I'm going to come for my COVID jab because it's going to be like another 6 months till I get it here. So by the time
use and abuse the NHS, you foreigners, don't you?
I've got my passport.
I love it. Look, I feel you're the host. You've got to do the wrapping up.
Right. Well, guys, thanks for joining. Caller, thanks for joining, mate.
It's been an absolute pleasure, actually. I genuinely mean that. It has been a pleasure. And do you know what we haven't even talked about, which I'm surprised you haven't brought up, Brandon, being the host with the most?
What?
The UEFA punishment.
Well, let's quickly go over that then. We saw the points. There was like 6 points. Basically, they say if a club decides to do this again, they'll be fined 100 million, that we have to pay 15 million now to grassroots football and children organisations.
No. We don't have to. All of the teams in the Super League, was it 15 teams? Combined have to donate 15 million.
Oh, that's nothing. That's how much they get from pies.
We could just sell Lamella to pay for it. That would be half of our share.
To Jose.
A caller coming to you then on this. It was to be expected, wasn't it? The Super League was a big up yours to UEFA over most other people. The domestic leagues obviously were belittled, but the main victim was UEFA with all this. So you would expect a backlash from them, wouldn't you?
I just don't know where we go from here, I suppose, is my big question, because there's still going to be... The big clubs are not just going to settle ultimately. I can't see him settling. I mean, that's what this agreement is trying to lock in, basically. So how legally binding it is, I don't know. I would imagine they've tried to make it as legally binding as possible. I mean, I've heard the Premier League are going to fine him in the next few days, and I know some of the patrons were sort of talking about how legally binding that would be. Um, this is just a little slap round the chops, isn't it? In effect, this is like, oh, you've been a really naughty boy. You're all going to give us €1,000,000, not even pounds. So it's about 800,000 pounds, which to Spurs is
It's
like
the Villa
Harry
Gate.
Kane's wages for less than a month. Um, so that's absolute pittance. 5% of the revenue that we'd receive from the club competitions in UEFA. So all right, for us that's probably going to be the European League or worse, the Conference, for one season, or if we're lucky, nothing at all. And it's basically a lot of future fines if we step out of line again, isn't it? Which, I was amazed Spurs were invited as a super club in the first place. I'd be gobsmacked if it happened again. But for the interesting thing to me is what they're going to do with Barcelona, Real Madrid, and what's one of the clubs, isn't there? Is it
Juventus.
Juve. It'd be interesting to see what they actually do with those clubs, because they've sort of talked about heavier sanctions for them due to them not renouncing the Super League. I mean, it does seem a little bit strange, really. It's a bit, it's interesting times we live in. But the teams have, the teams that have pulled out, like Spurs, have all accepted this document and sort of taken their seat back on the European Club Association, and it just feels a bit wimpish.
There does appear to be this idea that the Premier League are going to have a bit more teeth in this, and that the fines from the other Premier League clubs, or that the Premier League imposes on our six, will be far worse than what UEFA have done. Look, it's a balancing act, right? Because, again, none of us think that UEFA are bastions of football and can really be trusted with this money. But the point is that, like, it's still a better awful system than the one we came up with instead. Yeah,
do you know the irony, HG?
Go on.
If they'd have taken the time to consider what people wanted to see and got the European Super League right, it actually could have been a good proposition. If there was proper relegation, promotion, competitiveness, a bigger slice of pie for the clubs, all the things that they didn't do, really, or line up properly. It could have, it could have been a good move.
Yeah, I think the reason is that those clubs who really drove this project, which are the two Spanish ones and Juve, they understand that Juventus playing against Leicester, top four team as they are, they think that no one outside of Europe will really care to watch that. And let's be honest, like, how many Spurs fans sat and watched Leicester in the Champions League and their games? We didn't, right? So yes, there were other games to watch, including our own, probably. But so this idea, like a Super League sounds great, but it's only great for those massive teams who get to play the other massive teams more regularly.
But this is what I'm saying. I think a reform of European football is what is needed. So,
well, we have a Conference League now.
Oh, great! Yeah, just what we want, But these teams are going to be very thirsty for more of the pie, the big teams. Now, whether that's right or wrongly, that's not going to go away.
If they were using their own money wisely, you could understand that. But the fact is, they're trying to cover their own asses now, right? They have massive issues because they've just spent and spent and spent, and the pandemic has really, really hurt them, and they had to find a way out of it. And rather than saying, you know what, Mr. Hazard, I know we've signed a deal for you for like 4 or 5 years at 400 grand a week, but can we make it like 100 grand a week for 20 years? Can we extend it out longer so you get, because that's in theory what they have to do.
Yeah.
Right. That's the only way they'll ever be able to handle things, unless stadiums are back. And for whatever reason, they're not willing to do that, or the players will say, well, no. And yeah, like the system will break if they don't come up with a solution. Absolutely. But it really is dependent on those clubs that are living way beyond their means to come up with a solution for their own problems that doesn't hurt the rest of football. Because that's what the Super League idea really did. It hurt everyone else, in effect. It hurt. If you weren't in those 15 teams, like, everything was going to disappear. Your revenue was going to go far down compared to what it was.
Yeah.
And that is wrong. Like if you've got your own issues, get your own house in order, do that however you see fit, however you can. And if you can't, and that means that you end up losing players or going bust or whatever, well, tough shit. Basically, I have little sympathy. Like as much as it's not the fans of those clubs that have done it, like there have to be consequences, and the consequences can't just be, well, screw everyone else just to save our own skin.
Yeah, Bren.
All right, no, I was just thinking I've got to run, so I think we should wrap it up now.
Much as though you could listen to me and HG talk all night, you got to go.
Yeah, I've got to go. I've got to publish this as well. So we're going to call it a night.
Well, I've got my finger on the button, so that's my. Okay. Is that my call?
No, I'll say the outs. G says thank you for following us on this YouTube live. Do listen out for a review of what we hope will be a fantastic win over Leeds from Franco and the European crew. That will be out Saturday evening, Sunday morning. Don't forget to, if you haven't already, smash that like button, subscribe, leave a comment. It always helps with those with the stats.
Set alerts to on. Set alerts to on. Hit the little bell. And then you get notified when we get live. Even if you subscribe, if you don't hit that little bell, ding, then you don't get the notifications. So please do that if you want to see our beautiful faces over and over again.
Cool. And as ever, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.